are going to benefit our relationship with the horse as well as make sure that we have better control of the horse. Now the 5 parts that we're going to be focusing on are the head, the neck, the shoulders or forequarters, the rib cage, and at last, the hindquarters. See, she's already given to me to give those hindquarters, that's great. So, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to work on the head. Now I have just a basic rope halter here. You can use, and a basic 8-foot lunge line. Now you can use a web halter or anything that you have, but the concept of this is to get the horse comfortable to you touching her head. Now this horse is a little bit head shy, so we're going to work really slowly. And the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to press on this horse's head at the very top. And all we're wanting her to do is give. When we press on her pole, we want her to give that head. See, she's instantly giving that head. Now why would getting control of that head be important? Well, number one, when you're bridling or working on that horse's head, you want to be able to touch that horse's head, and she's going to put that head down for you. So press and release, press and release. Now we're also going to use the lunge line to accomplish, or the lead rope to accomplish the same thing. I'm just going to, see, I'm going to pull her head, and she's going to go ahead and give that to me. Very nice. Just pull, pull. Oh, she's resisting, she's resisting. I'm pulling. She gave me her head, and I released. So it's just pressure, release. The horse learns from the release. They don't learn from the pressure. So when we ask that horse to give, and that horse gives, we reward that by letting go. And you do, just let go. Think, let go. As soon as they give you a little bit, you let go. Okay, now we're going to move on to the head and the neck. Now, well, what we're going to concentrate on here is getting her to, I'm going to ask her to back up for me a little bit. And the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to get her to move her head and her neck laterally. Now, right here, behind the horse's shoulders, is what I call the safe zone. And lots of other people call it the safe zone because you can control the horse from this point. By touching pressure points on both in front of the shoulder and behind the shoulder, I can get that horse to move over if I need to. Now what I'm asking her to do is I'm going to stand in the safe zone with my toes pointed forward. Now if your toes point towards the horse, what's more likely to happen is that the horse moves to the side, she's going to step on your toes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask her to give me laterally, there you go, and release. I'm standing in her safe zone, and if she moves around, I would make sure that I followed her until she gives. She gives really nicely. See, she gave me that nice little nod right here. Now generally, she's been doing this for a long time, so she gives really nicely and nice and supple. Now what this is going to do is it's going to warm up that horse's neck, and it's going to help for you to get vertical flexation, eventually be able to get that horse to give you her nose. So when you put pressure on her nose, again, she puts that nose in, and then you can release. Lateral flexation is the key to vertical flexation, and that's why we do this over and over again with both the halter and with the bridle. Now, what you do on one side, you always must repeat on the other. Now, again, I'm going to stand in her safe zone. Horses usually have one side that's a little stiffer than the other. My feet are pointing forward. My hand is up here. I'm kind of holding, if I had a saddle on, I could hold on to that saddle. But I'm up here with my hands on her withers. I'm going to take my hand, and I'm going to pull her towards it. There you go. See how she gave me that head? I'm going to reward her by letting go and also giving her a little pet. There we go. Now I'm going to turn just a little bit, and I'm going to ask for that bend again. There you go. See how she gave me that nice little nod? I'm not having to pull her real hard. There we go. She gave to me, so I'm going to ask her to just be good. All right. Now the next, we've done these exercises. There's a few more exercises that we can do with this, but we're going to move on to the shoulders. Okay, now with the shoulders, what we want the horse ultimately to do is to actually pivot on this back hip, which is the inside, where we're standing is always the inside, The outside is always the other side of the horse. So whether you're on the right side or the left side of the horse, the inside is where you're at, the outside is the opposite of is at the opposite side. Now what I'm actually going to ask her to do is pivot her front end around her back end. So I'm going to accomplish this by coming up here to her face, and I'm going to be kind of slack here. I'm not going to ask for a whole lot, but I'm going to keep my elbow up. So if she was to go to move her head, and I'm going to tap right here. Tap, 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 and I'm going to walk towards the front of the horse and tap, tap, tap. I'm not getting that crossover that I want. I'm not getting that crossover. There we go. Now I'll release. What I want is this inside leg to cross over that outside leg, to cross over. And when I get that, I'm going to release. So I'm going to ask her to move. There we go a little bit. Tap, tap, tap. Tap, tap, tap. There we go. I'm getting a little bit. I'm asking her for a little bit more. Tap, tap, tap. There we go. There we go. See how she was crossing over that inside leg over the outside leg. You start out by just a few steps. If you can get 1 step, release. 2 steps, release. Now we're going to ask for 3 steps. Cross over. So she understands what we're talking about. Tap, tap, tap. There's 1. Up. Start all over again. Tap, 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 tap. Walk towards the front, keeping her from walking forward. Keeping her from walking forward. There you go. 1, 2. Ah! Didn't quite get it, but we're going to keep going. We're going to use an exclamation. There we go. 1, 2. Ah, we're getting 2. 1, 2. Nope. 1. Whoop. And she wants to go forward. So we're going to push her back and bring her forward. When I want the horse to come forward, I'm going to give her a snap and she's going to follow. When I want her to stop, I'll put my hands up. When I want her to back up, I'm going to wiggle, wiggle, and I'm going to add a little whip if she doesn't go quick enough. Then I want her to come to me. I'm going to snap. Come on. Now, if they don't go straight and come towards you, always go off to the side. Ooh. Now I'm going to ask her by wiggling to back up. Back up, back up, back up. There we go. Now she backed up just fine by the wiggle. Ultimately, if I want her to move away from me, I should be able to wiggle, and she backs out of that zone. I'll add the whip, but there we go. She'll back up. That's also using that shoulder. So, what we do on one side, we do on the other. We got 1 step. That was good. We got 2 steps. That was better. But this is going to be a continual process. So I'm going to put my elbow up, and I'm going to tap on that shoulder. I got 1, 2, 3, 4. Yay! We got much better on this side. Like I said, different side of the horse, different side of their brain. What you do on one side, you do on the other. Horses are good on one side and not necessarily good on the other sometimes. Always take a moment to stop, pet your horse. Get them used to handling them around their eyes. And if you want to, just do that little press and release. Make sure that they're giving to you all the time. Now, we're actually going to move from the shoulders to the hip. Now, in order to get the hip to move, let me turn this way a little bit. In order to get that hip back up, back up, back up. In order to get that hip to move, so she knows that I'm asking her to do something, I'm going to change my posture. Now I'm going to come to the back of the horse, and I'm going to kneel down. I'm going to keep this arm up. See how she's actually pivoting on that inside front foot. That's really nice. And I stand up, she should stop. She's got this one a whole lot better than she's got the other side. We move to the other side of the horse, put my arm up, change my pressure, change my posture, So she knows she needs to move that back in. That's disengaging those hindquarters. I want that crossover. I want that nice little crossover that I got before. There we go. If she doesn't move, I tap her. I want her to stop, I stand up. And she should come nice and straight with me after every movement. Now it gets harder. Moving the horse's rib cage is usually the most complicated thing. That's why you use a fence. So, when we want to move the horse's rib cage, what we're going to do is we're going to stop forward motion, and we're going to ask her to move sideways. We want to cross over with both the front and the back. See the crossover with the front feet and the back feet. There we go. I'm going to point the direction I want her to go, give her a tap on the shoulder, get her parallel with the fence. She's moving off the fence a little bit. I'll move her forward. And with my hands going up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down, I'm telling her to move sideways. Ooh. I'm going to switch hands. I'm going to point the direction I want her to go. And we're going to repeat the process. They learn this really quick. If her butt's lagging, she's not using those hindquarters, I put my whip towards the hindquarters. The whip is not really here to hurt the horse. It's just to act as an additional aid. This is an extension of your hand. Now this is just a standard dressage whip. It's about 3 foot long. It's up to you what works best for you. But that's how to move the horse to the side. Now again, the horse backs up. Now, I want the horse to be able to move forward on any cue. And I want to start basic lunging. Now for lunging, I'm going to switch out. Now I can teach the horse how to lunge if I need to with just my lead rope, but ultimately I want her to get a little farther out. This is kind of a tight circle. The tighter the circle, the more you have to work on the horse. But what I'm doing is I'm positioning my body right there to that safe zone, what's called the drive line. That's where the girth of your saddle would be, right behind the hump in the shoulders. That's the withers. Now I position myself with my belly button pointed towards her drive line. And my what I call my rein hand or the lead hand is pointed towards the nose of the horse. And to keep her going, I'm going to use my whip hand to just move that whip. Now if she's going along, I don't need to move the whip. I can lower and relax my hand, but as soon as she starts to slow down, then I can increase. There she goes. She's starting to relax. And that's really nice. Now, to stop her, I'm going to step in front of the drive line. Oh. She already knows this drill. I'm going to switch hands, point the direction I want her to go. She's going to give me a little bit of a test to make sure that I really was going to. I really do want her to go that direction. And I do. It's easy to teach a horse how to lunge basically with a shorter lead line. This is only, whoops. And we lost our helper. Okay, now we're going to go through some basics of lunging. The horse has the general idea of what to do, since we've worked with her with a lead rope first. Now we're going to move on to a lunge line. Now this lunge line is approximately 12 feet. So that means that you're going to be making a circle that is about 20 feet around. So you need to make sure you're in an area where you can accommodate the circle. Just like basic math, you're the actual center of the circle. This line is your radius. Your horse creates a diameter around you. Since you are the center, you must remember not to move unless you want that horse to move. Now I've also moved to a lunge whip. Now a lunge whip is generally about 5 feet tall. Actually, this one's about 5'5", about the same size as me. And it has a little bit of a crack to the end of it that you can move around. I like a nice bright one so you can see it a little bit better. Now, in order for me to get my horse started, I'm going to pick the hand and the direction that I want her to go. I'm going to point in that direction. and I'm going to ask her to move. Now, this is what's called your rein hand. Now, this is acting like the reins to your horse. Now, she already got in front of me and got going the opposite direction. That's okay. Again, I'm going to point her in the direction. Now, lunging is an excellent thing to do with a horse like this one who's got a lot of energy to burn. As you can see, I didn't ask her to move off, but she's going to go ahead and move off. With lunging, you can do this anywhere. The rein hand and the rein foot, I'm going to set my heel in the ground. I'm going to keep my eyes basically on the horse's flank or on her rear to keep her moving. If I start looking at her face, then that's actually subconsciously going to get her to slow down. Now, if I want her to slow down, I'll ask her. We're going to go through the basic commands. She's just giving me a good low band. She's giving me a good pull. With my hand, the bottom of my hand facing the horse, just like I would hold my rein. I didn't ask her to do that. So I'm going to make the correction, and she's going to continue to move. This is a good way to get a fresh horse unfresh. It's always a good idea to lunge before you ride. It's better off if they're going to kick up their heels to let them do it while you're not on their back. And that's why lunging's important. Also, she's giving me a pretty good pull. So by having that foot, that rein foot planted, my right foot planted, and my elbow into my side, she's not going to pull me over. I have enough strength. Now I'm going to ask her to stop, switch my hands, whoa, point the direction I want her to go. I'm going to ask her for a trot. Now she's going to move into a lope. That's okay. That's the whole idea of a lunge line, is to get that fresh out of your horse. A lot of times it's easier to lunge them first and then work on moving your 5 body parts. Because lunging gets that excess energy out. And she's got a lot of energy. Now I'd much rather do this. Than be riding her right now with her being in the mood. Now, it's probably been about a week since she's been ridden, especially with barrel horses or performance horses, or a horse that has a little more energy. This is a great way to get that excess energy out. Now, if I want her to start doing some obstacles, which we're going to kind of stop over here, we're going to stop for a second and we're going to move into an obstacle, kind of add a little more interest to what we're doing. So, I'll be with you in just a second. So, come on over here, Tom. All right. Now, adding obstacles is always fun. This horse knows the barrels and also knows the poles right here. So this makes it a little bit more interesting for her to have something to watch and keep her feet moving. Gain respect from your horse by keeping her feet moving. And her feet are moving quite nicely. She's looking at that barrel, she's going to jump. Now, ultimately, you would start out with just having some ground poles to work with. But I like using barrels or using any small jump just to kind of help get that horse moving. Now that was a little too slow. She has to have at least a trot going in order to get over that barrel. And she decided she wasn't going to do it. But she wants to do this. It won't always be what you have to do. Like that. That was a refusal. I'm going to turn her around. Step in front of the drive line. I'm going to give her a little correction. We're going to go the direction she already went, what she liked. I want to turn her way before she gets to those barrels. Come on. And she has a nice wide berth. We're going to concentrate on her for a second to do just a little bit of a quick turnaround work because she's not paying attention. She's not being very respectful. So the way I'm going to accomplish that is I'm going to shorten up my lunge line. I'm going to get her to do some stops. Make a little correction there. And get some of that energy out. Moving that shoulder. She's been trained to move that shoulder. Now everything that we've done so far is called sensitization. Now what we want to concentrate on is desensitization. We want to make sure that the horse isn't afraid of the whip. We can still touch her with the whip even though we've asked her to move every time we've used that whip. We want to be able to pet her with that whip too. We want to relax. Come on. I'm going to ask her to come forward for me. Girl. Now desensitization is something that always has to be done. Just because you've desensitized a horse once doesn't mean it's going to stick. It's something that you have to continually do and continually work with. And that's desensitization is basically just getting them used to everything that you can possibly throw at them. And they take it all in stride. And they say, oh yes, I've seen this before. It's not a scary horse-eating monster. It's not going to engage their flight instinct because they are a prey animal. It's either fight or flight, and most of the time, it's flight with a horse. That's why they get scared and run away. So, I'm going to start with my whip, just moving that whip all around my horse and get her used to the fact that I'm not asking her to move away from me. I'm just asking her to accept that whip. Now, if she wasn't going to accept the whip, the best way to get things started is to ask the horse to follow you while you hold an object. If an object runs away, then that means that a horse shouldn't be afraid of it. Now, to do this, I'm going to switch from the lunge line back to my lead line, which is about 8 feet, a little bit shorter. And we're going to play with a few little objects, scary horse-eating monsters. Now, the ultimate scary horse-eating monster is a plastic bag. The best way to introduce a plastic bag to your horse is on the end of another stick. Now, she sees the bag. We're going to play put your nose on it. So, she looks down and investigates it. She put her nose on it, and I'm going to release her from it. Introduce her to it. She puts her nose on it. I'm going to release her from it. Now she's looking at it. She's seeing where it's going. I want her ultimately to be comfortable. Oh, see? There we go. We had a little bit. She's a little bit nervous. Look at her. Look at her nostrils. Her nostrils are flaring. She's not real comfortable with this. But she's accepting it. So we're going to take that away. We're going to take that away. What we want to do is approach and retreat. We introduce the object as much as the animal will allow us to introduce. There we go. And then we take it away. So they don't feel that they're retreating, that it's going to hurt them. Now she's licking and chewing. Her nostrils are no longer flaring. Her ears ears are pricking forward and she's listening to me. So she's showing one of the 5 signs of relaxation. She's licking and chewing, lowering her head. Her ears are twitching back and forth and focusing on me as I talk. And if she was to cock a hip or to make a deep sigh, I also know that she would be comfortable. What you do on one side, you do on another. You look in her eye, she rolled her eye back a little bit. You could see a little bit of the white of her eye. She wasn't exactly comfortable with this, but she's allowing me to do it, and so I'm going to retreat. And instantly when I retreat, she watches it. I'm going to come back and introduce it to her again. She's going to put her nose on it, and I'm going to take it away. Now she's still not real comfortable. Her ears are kind of pricked back a little bit, and her nostrils are flaring. She's showing me a little bit of the whites of her eyes, so she's not real comfortable with this, but that's why we do this over and over and over again, because every time we get a little bit better. She's smelling it, investigating it. Now this time, yeah, she still raises her head. She's still not real comfortable with it around her head, but she's going to tolerate it. And as soon as she kind of puts her head down a little bit, I'm going to take that away from her. She's looking at me. That's good. That's good. I want her to put that head down or start licking and chewing, kind of make a sign that she's completely okay with what we're doing. And then I'm going to release that from her. Those ears are pricking forward. That's good. I'm going to retreat just a little bit. There she is. She's going to smell it. Just approach and retreat and get them used to it. Now, when I start adding motion, she's a little bit more uncomfortable with that. She's trying to move away. She thinks that that's what I want her to do, but in fact, I don't want her to move away from it. I want her to accept it. So as soon as she stopped, I'm going to let that go. I don't want her to bolt, so if it looks like she's going to run away, I'm going to quit doing it. And then I'm going to retreat. Move back, let her put her nose on it. There we go. So, it's just going to take a little bit more work. Some horses don't mind the plastic bag at all. See, there you go. She's relaxing a lot more than she was with the plastic bag in just a few minutes. We haven't done this a whole lot, so she's still learning how this works. She's still not entirely comfortable with it, but what I ultimately want her to do is just put her head down and completely relax. That was pretty good for today.